presentation of the interface of Blender. Here we have Blender just after install it by default settings and factory settings, and we open it and we have this. So if it's the first time you open a 3D software, it can be a little confusing, a lot of buttons everywhere, not easy to find what you want, especially if you are used maybe to Photoshop or other 2D softwares or things like that. So here we have Blender interface by default. We have several components on it. So here on the top view here, it's the top bar, and we will have different menus on it, and we will start to discover this interface by that. So the first menu is File. It's really the kind of menus you have in every softwares for different shortcuts like Save, Control S, Shift Control S to save as, save copy, Open with Control O, Shift Open Recent with Shift Control O to make a new, Control N. So this is really to manage your files here. And after you have user preferences, and we will have a look on this in later videos. And here we have save startup file. It means that if you make something like a change into your interface or your default settings here, and you do this, so file save startup file, you will have this every time you open Blender later. So here it's this kind of options, and we have some templates, we have some we can load factory settings if needed, and here we have external data. This is an important one to pack everything that is outside your blend, like for example textures, images, or other things that you will use into your blend file. So you can pack it into the blend file like this. You can move this blend file in your system, and it will not change. When you open it, you will find your texture back. After link and append, it's to import other objects from other Blender files. And import and export is really to make other extensions like 3ds or OBJ or FBX, STL for mix it with to other 3D softwares. So this is the file menu here, and quit, Control Q, sure, we know that. Render. First, what is a render? A render, it's a kind of take photo of the scene here. So we have the 3D view here, and in this 3D view we have three different objects here. We have the lamp, we have the cube, and we have the camera. And if I go into the camera view, it's 0 into the numpad, so you can see that I will have this view. And if I do a render now, render image, the shortcut is F12, I will have this Blender take a picture of what's happening in my scene. So I have my cube with the light that were here, and I take it from my camera, and I have this image. This image, after I can save it and tell image, save as image, and save it somewhere into my computer. For example, if I do this for this image, save as image, okay, I will put it in the desktop, do it test, okay, let these options, but I can still save in other file formats, and save as image. And after I do escape, and I come back to my 3D view. So here now I have my test image that I did. So we did our first render in Blender. Whoa. Here we have render animation, the same thing, but if you animate things, it will make it will make a series of images or video file format too. Here we have OpenGL render. OpenGL render, it's like can make a screenshot that is inside what's inside your scene, but it doesn't take the interface of Blender, so it can be good for share things that you have into your scene. And here we have some OpenGL render options to manage that deeper. And we have play rendered animation and show hide render view. So here I come to my render view with F11 or escape, it works too. After we have this menu that is window. Window, here we can make a screenshot and make a screencast too. It means that you can record what you do directly in Blender in a video file. This is not what I use for this for this training, because here I need the audio, and the Blender doesn't take the audio yet, so I use another software for that. Here we have a full screen that can be useful for sometimes. Okay. Here we have a duplicate window if you have two screens to work on it. So it can be good to duplicate this window and have two windows, for example, one in 3D and one in 2D, when you work in texturings or things like that. After we have save screenshot that makes a screenshot, but is different from render OpenGL. Render OpenGL, as I said, it's really make a picture of the scene without the interface, and here save screenshots, it will take everything. I do the demonstration of it, so you see that the screenshot take all the interface of Blender, so can be useful too. After we have the help menu. The help menu helps you to go directly to websites or to a community if you have a problem into Blender. And after we have three different menus here that we can change. The first one, it's about the interface. By default, we have the interface with, as I said, the 3D view here. Here it's a tool menu that changes a little if you select different objects. Select is with the right click. And here we have the animation. So the timeline. So with the frames here, the start, the end, and play buttons here. So we will really learn this into the chapter of animation. We will have an entire chapter about animation in Blender. Here we have the outliner that helps you to navigate into your scene, to select directly here your objects. You can find your objects back, the camera, the cube, the lamp. Okay. And here we have the properties editor here, with a lot of options. I will make maybe an entire video of it. Maybe not an entire video, but I will stay longer on it. So this interface, I come back here. By default, you can change it and make, for example, an interface for animation directly. And we will have still the 3D view, still the timeline, and still properties editor, and still the outliner, but we will have other stuffs here that are only for animation. We can manage the curve with curve editor. We will have a dope sheet editor too to manage the keys of your animation. And we have a lot of things that we can do in Blender. Blender is not only a modeling software. It's you can do motion tracking, you can do compositing, you can do video editing, you can do a lot of stuff with Blender, and all those let's say, default interfaces are done for that. So if you want to do compositing, you go there and you will have node editor there and stuff that are perfect for compositing. And same thing with UV editing, for example. If you want to work with a 2D view and a 3D view there, so to unwrap your model, you will use the UV editing directly there. You can come back by default very easily. You have video editing too. Video editing works a little like Adobe Premiere or other video editing softwares that you put some strips inside, video strips, and you manage it and you mix it to make a final video. And what's interesting, we have game logic to do some games. We have some scriptings if you want to script too. So a lot of interfaces that can be interesting. We will stay by default and we will see that we can do our own interface and manage it and customize it. And it will be the next video. So just wait a little if you want to know more about that. And here we can manage our scene. So let's say it's kind of, if I make a new scene, I will have another new scene by default here. And it will be a little like have two blend files into one. And like this I can manage a scene totally separately in the same blend file. So it can be interesting for some things. And here we have render engine. So render engine is when you push F12, okay? The algorithm that makes the camera catch the light into the cube and everything. So this is what we choose. By default it's Blender render and it's not really a good option for what we will do. So we will do a first thing is to make cycles render first. Cycles render and let it by default here. So cycles render, and how to let it by default, we come back to file and save startup file. Like this, every time we will open Blender, we will have our scene here and come back with cycles render. So if I close Blender, okay, and I come back to Blender, sorry, I did something wrong maybe. Save startup file. Maybe I didn't click on it. I close Blender. I reopen Blender. Okay, and I find cycles render here. Yeah, don't forget when you do that to when you do save startup file to click on it after, because it has confirm. So if you don't do the confirm, it will not work. After that, we will go a little deeper in the interface here. What we have here is the tool menu. The tool menu concerns the operation that you can do on an object that you did selected. So if you select, for example, the lamp, you can translate, rotate, scale, or mirror the lamp, or duplicate, or do stuff that concern only this lamp. And if you select the cube, you have others options, because a cube is a really different object from the lamp. We will see that after. It's a mesh, so totally different, and we have smooth option, flat options, data transfer, or things like that. So here it's a tool option. The 3D view, we will learn how to navigate into the third video of this chapter, so it will be soon. But just remember that for now, if you want to select, it's right click, and if you want to navigate, it's middle click, and to zoom, it's the scroll of the mouse. Okay, I will just add here my start display. So my start display here will be during all the training too. You can see what I do while I do it directly. So if I click on the middle mouse button, so you see here the button. If I do, for example, Shift D to duplicate this cube, you can see Shift D will appear here. So here it's a good way to see the shortcuts I will use during the training. And after, so we'll have the timeline. I told already a little about it. Here's the outliner to select directly what we want. Okay. You can, with the outliner, that it's interesting. You can manage, for example, like some filters. If you have a lot of objects in Blender in different layers, you can do by layers, or the current scene if you have more scenes, or only selected. So it can be useful to use that. And here in the timeline options, in the outliner options, sorry, we have here, you can make appear the objects or no in the 3D view. You can make them active or not. So it means no, I cannot select them or make any operation of them on them. So no, I can. You can see that now it works. And you can render it or not. So for example, if I do, my cube is into my scene, but I don't want it to render, and I make an F12, you can see that I don't have my cube in my scene. So for that, everything is normal. And you can come back with the cube rendered into your scene. And after, we have a quite big editor. The properties editor is very important into our Blender learning. So we will have to spend a little of time on it just to discover here what these little buttons means and what you will do with that. So here you can see that first, a little like tools, if you select object, it will add some options or remove some options or make specific options. Like for example, if I select my camera, I have a camera here tab directly. So if I select my cube, I have different things because my cube is a mesh and has a lot of options that you can do on it. And for example, for my lamp, I have less options, but I have a lamp tab. So here it changes if you select a different kind of objects. You can expand it like that if you need, or here too, to expand it. And we will have a look on all these little tabs. So first, this first tab is the render tab. This render tab, you can choose the size of your image. You can choose the samplings. We will see this later. You can choose the frames of your animation, the frame rate. You can choose the output of your files and a lot of stuff like that concern only rendering. Okay. And you have the button to render. That is the same here, to render image F12, render here, it's F12 too. Render animation or render only audio if you want to do that. And so we have this first tab. The second tab is the scene option. So you have the layer manager that you can use here too. You have some passes. Use the denoising or not. We will see what is this later. And this view tab, I don't use it. We have another button, another tab of scene, for scene, and this scene you can manage unit presets. Like for example, if you want to make your Blender understanding feet or kilometers or meters, you can choose it directly there. And you can change to the color management, or the gravity into Blender for the simulations. So here the third tab. Fourth tab, the world option. It concerns everything that is outside our object. And you can add some image. For now, it's just a gray. If I change the color and put it white, okay, and do F12 to render it, we will see that the world is white and makes a lot of light. And we will see how to manage that later. We have ambient occlusion, we have ray visibility, we have a lot of options there that we will manage later. The next tabs, this one, this one, this one, this one, it concerns the object itself. So, and it can change. You can see that if I use a camera or a lamp, these tabs will change. I can still do, so here it's the object options. I can find the location of my object, the rotation of it, things like that. And here is constraint. So you can add some constraint to an object to make it, for example, follow another. Here we have the camera tab, but this is only for this camera object. If I select the cube, it will be a different one, and if I select the lamp, it will be a different one. And after we have materials, texture, particles, and physics. So this, it's really for only the objects that you select. For example, for the lamp, you will not have particles, or you will not have materials. So this change after in function of what you select here in the 3D view. So these were the property editor, a big one. We will spend a lot of time on it during the training, so don't worry, we will discover it more deeply in each videos. So next video will be about customize the interface.